You so much for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. My name is Donnie Druin, joined by my man Kevin Hicks. First time certainly will not be the last time. Thank you so much. Go to follow our work at allcardinals.com or si.com/NFL/Cardinals. Today, Kevin, we are talking Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. Will be right back at State Farm Stadium Saturday night at 5 p.m. local time for the second week of the preseason. But before we dive into all that, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Looking forward to this game. It's going to be, even though it's preseason, it's going to be a big test. I believe the Chiefs play their starters through most of the preseason. So we're going to probably, hopefully, see Patty Mahomes. That's going to be a big test for some of the young guys. And let's see how it goes.
Yeah, the Chiefs are notorious for playing their starters throughout the preseason. Obviously, when you look at the success Kansas City has had, you really can't blame them, right? I mean, they've become the gold standard in the NFL. And I feel like if Andy Reid feels like playing your starters works, then damn it, playing the starters has to work, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So
And they're
we have
looking
a
for their
bunch of
third
things
win.
to. Sorry, go ahead.
I was, I was just going to say they're looking for their third win in Arizona in the last year. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, the same amount as the Cardinals, by the way. So both of them
Yeah.
are looking for their third win in the stadium. People remember they came here week one last year, slaughtered the Cardinals, finished their season at State Farm Stadium with a win over the Philadelphia Eagles, who, by the way, their defensive coordinator and linebackers coach are now on the Cardinals staff as head coach and defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. So I think that's a perfect segue to kind of what we want to watch for in this game between the Chiefs and the Cardinals. So a couple different things. Number one was what we're looking for. Position battles, right? There's a couple different battles to watch across. I think heading into training camp, there were maybe like a coin flip in terms of some positions, like center, for example. Yaldi Froholt has taken the center grasp 100%. I don't think anybody like John Gaines is going to be able to kind of get it off of him. But nonetheless, there's still a couple different battles you can definitely watch and tune in for. Most interested is the CB2 battle between Christian Matthew and Kei'trel Clark. I thought it was weird that Antonio Hamilton was listed as the CB1 on the depth chart, but throughout training camp, he really didn't get any reps with the starters, didn't get starting time last week against the Denver Broncos, although he did have a pick. But between Kei'trel Clark and Christian Matthew, I'm very excited to see how that pans out opposite of Marco Wilson.
Yeah, I am too. Kei'trel has everything that I've heard. He's been spectacular throughout camp. He had a really great game last week. He got a lot of reps, and he might have higher upside than Marco, because Marco still does have good upside, but he's going to year three, so there's got to be some point where his fruits start to bear. Like I don't know how to put it, but he's got to put it together at some point. Kei'trel's just a rookie, sixth round pick. He didn't have extremely high expectations, but honestly, I feel like he should have been picked higher. That was a great pick. Like regardless, even if he doesn't become a star, he can become a solid player, and I truly believe that.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, and that kind of bleeds into the next point. The second test for rookies, right? You get the first game out of the way. Okay, maybe some of the pregame jitters, like Clayton Tune had talked about, may have gotten the best of them, made them a little bit nervous. But week two now, everybody puts their pants on the same way as you do. You know that now. You know you can play with these guys. Let's see how you actually play when you know you have that prior experience behind you, right? And I think for a guy like Kei'trel Clark, who kind of bounced outside between like the boundary and the slot during his time at Louisville, for him to play exclusively outside corner might have been a big jump considering the size deficit. But like you said, I mean, he made a very, very nice diving pass breakup last week. He was very good in run support. And I think if he and all the other rookies can continue building on that, I think it'll be really impressive. Obviously, Clayton Tune at quarterback, what can he do with another look at his position? Paris Johnson looked very, very good. Can he hold up against a Super Bowl winning defense? So even Michael Wilson, too. I mean, Michael Wilson has looked like a stud throughout training camp and even looked very good against Denver. Can he do that against a pretty good Kansas City Chiefs defense?
Yeah, Michael Wilson, I don't even know what to say because I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't do a whole lot of work on him before the draft, but he his stats, like at Stanford, his raw stats aren't that great if you look at them. But when you go back and look at his tape from college, he's a very good athlete. He's very good at creating separation. He has a very good release. He has all the physical tools you need to be a good receiver. And everything I've heard again from camp is that he's borderline dominating some of these practices. I'm very excited to see what he can do. Very excited.
Yeah, and I think I don't even want to put borderline out there. He's just been dominating. And granted, like Marquise Brown during a bunch of training camp hasn't been doing team activities, and Marquise didn't participate last year, not last week against Denver. I think regardless of when Hollywood Brown kind of works his way back into actual action, I think Michael Wilson is going to end up being that opposite boundary receiver outside of him with Rondell Moore in the slot. I mean, Zach Pascal is a veteran in this league. He's kind of proven to show what he can do. But man, like Michael Wilson's been making a crazy push for playing time. And like you said, man, he's so much better than a lot of people anticipated. Injuries more than anything held him back at Stanford. And I feel like if he can stay healthy, because the most important ability is availability, right? Like if you're not out there on the field, if you're not healthy, you can't do anything. And so if he could stay healthy, I definitely think Arizona got a steal out of him. And the third and final point of what to watch, the defending Super Bowl chance. Kind of already touched on it a little bit. The Chiefs are going to be playing their starters for about the first half. I'm sure guys like Patrick Mahomes won't play the entire full 2 quarters, but this is your first chance for a new Arizona Cardinals team. Granted, there's still some players from last year, but a brand new era underneath Jonathan Gannon to really get that good litmus test of, hey, Super Bowl champions in our house. We played good in training camp. We played good in the first preseason game and that crazy comeback win against Denver. Let's see how we really stack up against a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So I think that'll be interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I feel like Denver was a good litmus test just because I feel like Sean Payton's instilled a new culture there as well. But when you compare Denver and Kansas City as night and day, you could probably put Andy Reid on Denver and they still wouldn't be as good as Kansas City with the generic coach just because of Patty Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. They're just a fantastically run organization from top to bottom. Um, they they don't skip steps. They play their starters through preseason. They're kind of the model franchise right now, I feel like, and that's the perfect opportunity to show that Gannon's new culture is setting in. That players are going to play hard every down, every rep, regardless of what the score is, regardless of how they're doing. Like if they're on a hot or cold streak, I'm excited.
Excited indeed. I think a lot of Cardinals fans will be excited as well. At very, very worst, you're getting good entertainment value for the $5 tickets you'll be paying whenever Patty Mahomes and company come to town. The 3 players to watch, you had actually sent this to me last night. I'll let you take the reins with this one. First is Michael Wilson.
Um, Kind of touched on it a couple of minutes ago. Michael Wilson is just he's gunning for a starting spot right now. And that's extremely impressive for a third round rookie. Like if you look at the Cardinals wide receiver room, Dortch has impressed at various points, especially last year. Rondale, although he hasn't broken out like a lot of people have expected him to in the past, he still has a lot of potential. He's explosive. He's a natural playmaker. Hollywood, obviously, he shined last year as wide receiver one when D Hop was out. So when you have guys like that, even Pascal has had some solid games with Indianapolis, I believe, in recent years. When you put Michael Wilson in that mix, that's not a shabby wide receiver core. And if he's able to get starting reps and impress, I'm all for it. Throw him into the fire.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions as to how this room would look like after DeAndre Hopkins had departed, and I think the Cardinals, and obviously they drafted Wilson before they released Hopkins, but I think the Cardinals kind of knew, hey, if we can get Wilson kind of trending in the right direction, a little 1-2 punch on the outside with him and Marquise is definitely going to be good. And people forget Wilson's a big dude. Wilson is 6'2". He's tied for at least guys who are actually going to make the roster, like the largest body on the depth chart with Zach Pascal, who's also 6'2". So, having guys like that when you have shorter guys like Marquise, like Rondell, like Greg Dortch, it definitely makes a difference, especially in the red zone too. So, you had the whole like red zone target to his repertoire on top of getting open, like you said, on top of separating, on top of the very reliable hands he displayed. I think he's got a very big opportunity again in front of him to kind of show, hey, I deserve playing time. I know I'm a rookie, but I can make an impact for you guys.
Absolutely.
And then we already touched on Kei'Trel Clark a little bit, but again, another week, another opportunity to go against NFL caliber wide receivers. No Tyreek Hill on the Kansas City Chiefs, but nonetheless, I feel like you could throw me and you out there when it comes to Patrick Mahomes next to Travis Kelce, and we can
Yeah.
put up some pretty good fantasy football numbers.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And even then, they did lose Juju, but you bring in Kadarius Toney. He might not be a pure wide receiver one, but he kind of gives you that a little bit of a tweener look. Like he's a little bit like kind of reminds me of Deebo Samuel a little bit with his playmaking ability in the open field. Uh, he's very talented. You can't really deny that. I like Sky Moore a lot. I liked him a lot in last year's draft, and it'll be interesting to see if he has a breakout year.
The Chiefs don't have Justin Ross, do they?
They do.
They do. Okay. Because I remember
Yeah.
Ross was crazy good at Clemson, that he's been dealing with
Yeah.
injuries for the last few years. But even then, that's another receiver with upside if they can eventually get going too. So a lot of talk about Kansas City's wide receivers room, but I feel like they're almost in the same boat as Arizona, where there's potential. It just has to come to fruition there.
Yeah, I agree. Even MVS, he's not spectacular, but he has usually a game a year where he just absolutely goes off. He did in Green Bay and he did last year. So they have a bunch of guys that you can just spread the ball around to, and you don't really they didn't really miss Tyreek last year, honestly. Honestly, I think it made things easier for Patty because he didn't have to utilize as much tunnel vision. Because when you have a guy like Tyreek that just has game breaking speed and catching ability, you're always locked in on him and Travis. And now that just have Travis, you can focus on Travis, but you can also spread it around to guys that are good role players.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Kei'trel kind of matches up again. Can he stack back-to-back really solid performances? We've seen Wilson kind of ascend as like a bona fide receiver who will make an impact. Kei'trel still fighting for that CB2 spot opposite of Marco Wilson, with Christian Matthew, with Antonio Hamilton right behind him. Can he play well enough to kind of put himself a little bit further in that competition as we approach the final week of the season? We'll find out tomorrow. And lastly, I really like how you picked this guy because I did want to touch on him a little bit. Zaven Collins making the move from inside to outside linebacker. Didn't play a whole lot last week against Denver, but I felt like I don't want to say impressed, but he looked good for a first timer playing that role, especially against what many believe can be a turnaround Denver Broncos offense with Russell Wilson at the helm.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I wasn't sure how to process the move from moving Zaven from inside to outside because I feel like he's more natural as an off-ball linebacker. He had a very good year last year, in my opinion. He was one of the more consistent starters on the defense. But when you look at it, he has the size of an edge. He has the speed. He has the IQ. He has the instincts.
Yep.
And edge is a more valuable position than off ball. So it's worth taking a flyer on and seeing if it works out with him. I'm very excited to see what he does because KC does have a very, very good O line. I think that he could have a good game, could be in for a good performance.
Yeah, and it's funny because whenever Zaven was coming out of Tulsa, there was a little bit of talk about maybe can he play edge? You know, is he really an off-ball linebacker? Definitely struggled his rookie season, but like you said, I feel like he bounced back really, really nicely in 2022. So I feel like that's what caught most people by surprise whenever they did decide to move him to the outside. But I mean, when you look at the defense they're playing, they're playing, a traditional 3-4. Like you said, he has the traditional build of an outside linebacker, just in terms of the size. And I really like he brought up the IQ as well, because that's something both Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis had touched on before minicamp had started. And like, hey, you know, he's physical, he's fast, yeah, but he's incredibly smart, and that's definitely a very much added advantage when you're playing on the edge. Now, I will say, going from middle linebacker to going to an edge rusher, night and day difference just in terms of how you see the field and how you process things. So I am interested to see that. On top of, I don't feel like Zaven has a lot of like one-on-one pass rush moves. You know, at least I haven't seen it at training camp. I haven't seen it, last week against Denver. So can he develop those? That's going to be another big question. But when you have a guy with the potential, with the upside like Zaven Collins, you're certainly going to take your chances with him, especially like you said, at one of the most valued positions, if not the most valuable position on the defensive front.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to take a minute to mention an honorable mention for my who to watch. I think Isaiah Simmons, this is a big, big season for him. Monty declined his the team option for next year. So next year he's likely to be a free agent, and he's moving to safety. I feel like safety is the most natural position for him. Although I think he can play a little bit of everything still. I think that they kind of misused him in those years under Vance. And I hope that him moving to a more natural position where he's going to predominantly play instead of moving him around from spot to spot is going to benefit him a lot.
Yeah, you and everybody else thinks that Isaiah was misused by Vance the last couple of years. I would venture to say Isaiah himself also feels that way too, and I think he's really happy to kind of be settled in that safety position he operated best at Clemson.
Yeah, I'm just praying that it's not another Hassan Reddick situation where you misused him for 3 years and then he breaks out and then goes to another team and becomes an all-pro. Like that would be the absolute worst case.
People think there's another Hassan Reddick happening with Zaven Collins right now, moving him to the edge. So it's going to be really interesting too, because like after this year, they have to make a decision on Zaven's 5th-year option too, and they're only going to have 1 year to see Zaven as a pass rusher. And granted, we have seen him operate as an off-ball linebacker. And dude, that's another position battle too. We didn't even get into Chris Barnes versus Josh Woods, for that starting inside linebacker spot opposite of Kaiser White, but we could definitely touch on that another day. There's a lot riding on both Isaiah and Zaven Collins' plate too. Both of them going from inside linebacker to different positions. Isaiah, who's going to be hitting free agency next offseason, looking to get paid, rightfully so. Zaven Collins is going to have his 5th-year option picked up or not picked up next offseason. 2023 is a big year for arguably 2 of the best defensive players on the Cardinals side of the ball.
It is definitely. And you got to look at the secondary too. Isaiah at safety, I believe that Gannon's going to run a lot of Jalen Thompson in the slot as well. So you maybe can run Isaiah at safety more, but Jalen and Boot they're 2 of the best players on the defense as well. Obviously, Boot is probably the best overall. Boot is so reliable, and he's just so good at his craft, so good at stopping the run. I feel like he doesn't get enough appreciation for how he covers as well. And Jalen's been a consistent cog. He was pretty much a steal in the supplemental draft. But I still think it's interesting to see how Isaiah is integrated alongside them.
Yeah, and everybody wondered how the Cardinals would kind of roll that 3 safety lookout. And I feel like sometimes maybe we get too caught up in trying to determine what exactly is a base defense. I know they're running primarily 3-4, but whenever Isaiah is out there in that 3 safety look, it's more of a nickel look with like you said, Jalen Thompson playing in the slot. I love it in theory, right? You have a super long rangy guy in Isaiah Simmons kind of roaming the back end, playing that center field position. You have Budda Baker down in the box. I mean, when you think of how you want a safety to play, it's Budda Baker, right? Fast, violent, flies to the football, is the heart of the defense. That's exactly what you want out of a box safety. And then Jalen Thompson, like you said, just, a pretty good overall guy. I feel like he's a little underrated whenever it comes to the national perspective, but a very good football player nonetheless. That'll conclude today's episode. A lot of stuff to look forward to for the Kansas City Chiefs and Arizona Cardinals next Saturday. Before we go, Kevin, the Washington Commanders will be wearing white against the Arizona Cardinals in week 1. Are you rocking the all red or are you rocking the all black if you're the Cardinals in week 1?
All black.
All black. It's a funeral. Let them know.
Yep.
Set the tempo for week 1. Let them know.
He don't stand a chance.
And then, like you said, Sam Howell was announced as the quarterback, but we'll get into that much, much later. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Donnie and Druin, and it's at KHicks21. Bro, we got to get that Twitter link in the bio next time.
Yeah, I forgot to.
All good, my man. Go follow our work at allcardinals.com or si.com/NFL/Cardinals. We will see you guys next week after the Chiefs Cardinals preseason game. Peace.